But he's not here.
Huh? He's not. Is it filming? Mom?
That's on.
So we're still forging ahead, and I didn't want to art scroll the rest of it to make it see him. And besides, when I called Chaim, he refused to lend me his art scroll, Hannes. So in lieu of a siyum, mommy's watching this. So in lieu of a siyum, I like to say a vart. Lזכר, נשמת מורי, מרדכי ben שלום, אלעזר. When you hold emotion in for 50 years, it just comes out all the time. So I want to talk about a very, very interesting final Gemara, the first parak. And the Gemaras talk about that when supplicating Hashem during a drought, certain behaviors are appropriate for certain types of people. And the Gemara deduces this from the different prefixes, the letters in front of certain psukim in the Torah. So I'm going to quickly read the Gemara so you get the gist of it. Not everybody could rip their clothes to show that they're distraught, and not everybody could fall down and bow down. Moshe and Aaron, they fall to their faces. Yoshua but Yoshua and Kalev can only do kriya. They can only rip their clothes. So Moshe and Aaron benefila. How do we know that Moshe and Aaron are the only ones who can do nefila? Because the Torah says, and Moshe and Aaron fell to the ground. Yoshua b'Kalev b'kriya. How do we know that Yoshua and Kalev can only do kriya and not nefila? It says that both of them ripped their clothes. So this is the important part. So Rav Zera asked, or literally clarified, if the pasuk would have said Yeshua the Kalev Niklu al Karu as Bigdehem, if it would have said it that way, then it would mean that they can only do kriya. But the fact that they added a vav, the pasuk, it says V'Yoshua ha v'ha of it. It means that they can do both. That Yeshua and Kalev could both do kriya and nefila. They could do both of them. It wasn't exclusive. Then the Gemara goes on to a different example, and that example again goes through different psukim, and Rav Zera then makes the same deduction that based on the vav, you can do both. That person can do both things, not just one. So the last Gemara is a very ambiguous Gemara, and this is the one that I really want to tie into Daddy. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Afani Omer, Lo Akol La'ora, V'lo Akol L'Simcha. Because I also say, not everybody gets Ora, not everyone gets the gift of life. V'lo Akol L'Simcha, not everyone gets the gift of Simcha. Tzadikim La'ora, V'yisharim L'Simcha. Tzadikim get light, and Yisharim get Simcha. Tzadikim La'ora, how do we know Tzadikim get Ora? D'chsiv, Or Zorua La Tzadik. Uli Yisharim Simcha, how do you know Yisharim get Simcha? Because it says Uli Yishrei Leif Simcha. So why do I call this ambiguous? Because Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak starts off Afani Omer, I also say, which presupposes a connection with the previous Gemaras. And if it was like the previous Gemaras, there should have been a maskefle Rav Zera, clarification from Rav Zera, like the previous ones, which said, since it says above, both of them have it. But you don't see the maskefle Rav Zera here, and so we don't know what Afani Omer is, and we're left in the following conundrum on this Gemara, because it's so ambiguous. Is it better to be a tzaddik, or is it better to be a yashar? Is it better to get Ora, or is it better to get Simcha? So it is actually a machlokas Rashi and Rashba, but I want to concentrate on Rashi because if we look at Rashi the right way, we can answer all of these questions. So this is what Rashi says. Hachi garsinan. This is the way the Gemara should be read. Lo akol ora, v'lo akol simcha. Not everybody gets light. Not everybody gets simcha. D'chsiv or zarua sadik u'yishrei leif simcha. What does Rashi say? Yisharim l'simcha. Yisharim gets simcha. The Yisharim adife mitzadikim. Yisharim are better than tzadikim. So this would answer our first two questions. Number one, a yosher is better than a tzaddik. And number two, Simcha is better than Ora. But if you look inside, when you say Hachi Garsinan, it means that the Gemara that we read may not have been the proper, it had a mistake or something. But when Rashi says Hachi Garsinan, he quotes exactly what the Gemara says, which is unusual, should have been something different. But on the side of the Oz V'Hadar Gemara, there's something called Hagos V'Tziyonos, which they go through and they find that there may have been mistakes in the printing, someone wrote something, and he explains what the Hachi Garsina means. That when Rashi said Hachi Garsina, this should Hashabet, it's not that lo hakol, La'ora, below hakol Simcha. What Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak was saying was hakol la'ora, below hakol Simcha. Everybody gets Ora, but Yesharim get Simcha. Okay? So it's a different type of thing. And if we say it this way, everything makes sense. Because according to this Girsa, the Maskefle Rav Zera, which says that above connects it, right? That everyone, that's how he starts off. Hakol la'ora. Everyone gets Ora. But Yesharim not only get Ora, they get Simcha too. Now, Chaim, the Gemara shtims with all the other Gemaras. It shtims. So he says, Afani Omer. So, at the end of the day, Havaha Avid, if you're a Yashar, you get not only Ora, you get Simcha. That's the Vart. That's the shtick on the blind. So now that we know that, now that we see, and all the Gemaras make sense, why exactly is a Yosher greater than a Tzaddik? And why is Simcha better than Ora? So, in my opinion, I think we could find the answer in the first Gemara. The first Gemara was the Gemara of Yeshua v'Kalei Paru Bigdehem. The Gemara used the example of Yeshua and Kalei that they ripped their clothes when they were sad. Those Pesukim were talking about the Meraglim. You may not know this, but in 1967, a very famous movie came out called The Dirty Dozen. Excellent movie, The Dirty Dozen. The Dirty Dozen took place during World War II. And you remember that movie?
Absolutely.
Right? And it was planning for the D-Day invention, and they recruited 12 of the worst convicts who were going to be sentenced to death anyway. They were criminals. And they had them infiltrate a high-level meeting to try to end this war quickly. And it was called The Dirty Dozen. And for the most part in Yeshiva, that's how the Meraglim were depicted to us, as the Dirty Dozen, these kind of thugs. But in fact, if you look at Rashi, it's depicted the opposite way. The Torah doesn't depict these Meraglim as bad people, as the Dirty Dozen. Rashi says, Kol Anoshim, I lost the pasuk. But the pasuk says, they were Anoshim, Hem Anoshim, V'hayu Ksherim. It says Anoshim. These people, what is Anoshim? Oh, it says Kulam Anoshim, Rashi B'nai Yisrael Hema. That's the pasuk. They were men, and they were ahead of the B'nai Yisrael. They were ahead of the tribes. Okay. Rashi explains when it says Anoshim, it means the highest level person. Each one of these Meraglim were the head of their tribes. So if they were at the head of their tribes, they were the head of their tribes because of their Madrego Ruchnius. They were the highest level. And they were Gesherim at that time when they were picked to go and do and spy. They were Gesherim. They were Gedolim. They were the Gedolim of their time. Each one of those Meraglim were a Gadol Adar. So if that was so, how could these Gedolim speak so disparagingly about Eretz Yisrael? It says Yitziu Dibas Haaretz Asher Taru Osam. It says that they disparage Eretz Yisrael. So I believe in the Sichas Musar, I saw this. A very, very interesting answer. And that is, yes, the Meraglim were indeed great tzaddikim. And they were thoroughly committed to Shomrei Torah mitzvahs and Ovdei Hashem. And they were very committed to leading all the Bnei Yisrael that way. And their intent, and their biggest intent, was to keep the Jews in their Kedusha and in their Avodah Hashem, to keep that all intact. So think for a moment, from these Meraglim, from these heads of the tribes, think of what it looked like to them. As long as the Jews were in the desert, they were secluded. They were secluded from all outside influences, but more importantly, they were secluded with Hashem. It was just them and Hashem in the desert. Every day they directly connected to God, and every day God directly gave to the Jewish people exactly what they needed, both physically and both spiritually. Man fell every day. Water flowed out of a rock every day. There were Anani Akavod that protected them with the cocoon every day. They were protected. There was an Aish, this miraculous Aish at night that lit up the way for them. Every day, no matter where they looked, because they were in a circle, they saw the Aron, they saw the Shekhinah, they saw the Mishkan every day. There was this direct connection between God in every single way. The desert was a perfect environment to be inside. It was perfect. What would happen if the Jews left the desert and went into Israel? Number one, there'd be no more mud. Number two, there'd be no more automatic water flowing. There'd be no Anani Akavod to protect them. They'd have to go out and get a job. They'd have to go out, they'd have to work, they'd toil in the field, they'd have to build houses, they'd have to deal and fight enemies that were all around them. They would have to deal with all the Avodah Zarah and all the negative influences. And of course that would distract them from being Ovdei Hashem. So, thinking that, the Meraglim, these Gedolim, they did what's called a cost-benefit analysis. If they were in the desert, it would be easy to be at Tzaddik. If they went into the city, they probably would never be at Tzaddik. It was so difficult. So they felt that they were better off, the Jews were better off in the desert, because in the desert, they were certain to have this high madrega to be tzaddikim. Yoshua and Kalev believed something different. If you look in the Psukim, Yoshua and Kalev never disagreed with the rest of the Meraglim. They never contradicted the report of the people, they never contradicted the report of the land. What their philosophy was should the Bnei Yisrael go into the land, even though there were so many challenges, and would they be able to overcome those challenges and to remain at a high level? And that's what it says. Kalev says, Vayomer ala nala, we should definitely go up the Arashno, so we should inherit the land, Ki yachal nuchalo, because we can do this. We can go up into Eretz Yisrael. Yoshua and Kalev believed that the raison d'etre of a Jew was not so much to be a tzaddik, but to be a yashar, to be able to go into a land and be straight, but be at every single different angle, being seduced, so to speak, to veer off into a byway that was not healthy, to veer this way, to veer that way, not to stay on the straight and narrow. And to Kalev and Yoshua, that was being a Jew, was overcoming these challenges and to keep being a yashar, to keep being straight. I want to cut this short because I know so I'm going to give you one little drush that I saw. The pasuk says, "Vayomer ala nale v'yarash nuosa ki yachol nuchal." Kalev said, we should go up and we should possess it. So the word v'yarashnu, the root word is yarash, to possess. But if you take the same letters in yarash, it also spells yashar. So perhaps the underlying message here that he's saying is, Ala nala, we should go up, v'yasharnu. We'll go to Eretz Yisrael, v'yasharnu, not that we'll inherit it, we'll continue to be straight, we'll continue to be able to overcome the challenges, and we'll continue to be straight. I'm skipping because this is taking too long. The takeaway of all this, and looking at all these different things, is what Hashem wants are not tzaddikim in the desert, but yesharim in the city. That's the goal of a Jew. If you thought about my father, as anyone here who knew my father, the first word that you would say to describe my father would be straight. Next would be nerd. But the first thing would be straight.
Oh yeah.
My dad was the straightest guy there was. Now some say this could be his nature, and that could be true. But think about all the challenges that were thrown at his yashras, even for someone whose nature to be straight. Think of the really extraordinary challenges that were thrown against his yashras. He went through the Holocaust. He lived in a hole. Everyone knows the story. He arrived in America as a greener. He didn't know how to say mustard. I know that was Henry, didn't know how to say mustard. But they came to America with nothing as a greener. Another challenge, he had to raise me. My father had to raise, Yaakov said, how did your father raise you? You're so different, right? And of course, he battled cancer for many years. But if you knew my father, with all of those challenges to veer off, to go this way and that way, he continued straight ahead, and he never veered from being an Oved Hashem the entire time. But what's more amazing is that besides keeping straight and going this straight, so when you watch that video, he was pretty sick because I never even saw my father wear suspenders my entire life. So he was pretty much at the end of the game there, or pretty sick. But if you watch the video, he was talking, he was kibitzing, he was never bitter. But more than not ever being bitter, from what I remember my father, he was happy. Three Stooges on a Sunday morning, nobody laughed more than my father. He was a happy guy. He wasn't just a guy who said, this is what's going to be. And maybe that's why the Mishnah in Avos specifically uses the adjective, Ezu Asher Hasamech B'Chalko. It says someone who's happy is rich. It doesn't say someone who's satisfied with what he has. That guy's rich. And some people interpret the Mishnah that way. Who's rich? Someone who's satisfied with his lot.
But their great-grandfather, Zadie Regis,
Right.
was the same way. He was Sameach B'Chalko.
Right. But it wasn't.
always said it, and
Yeah.
and Mark always said that.
But more than me. But it wasn't that he was just satisfied. It doesn't say in the Mishnah, Ezu Asher Hamistapik B'Chalko, who's a rich person, someone who's satisfied with what he has. It specifically says Ezu Asher Hasameach B'Chalko. Only when someone's happy with what he has, that's a truly rich person. He's not only sees what he gets, but he's happy. He has a happy life. Only a yasher, someone who's a yasher, who could overcome all of these challenges, all of these things that could make another person bitter and veer off, but stay yasher. And more than that, with all these challenges, remain happy. That person is an ashir. It is that combination, like the Gemara says, of yashras and simcha that leads a person to riches. And
Riches or riches?
there you go. I think all of us could say that my father was probably one of the richest people that we know. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh yeah. Father's neshama should have an aliyah. You didn't wash, make a bracha. I didn't know you'll hate him out.
This one's for Raghuram.
What's his name?
Charles Bronson.
You know who?